Sports Network broadcast. You can find us on Roku TV, Amazon Fire Stick TV, Facebook, and YouTube. Get all your sports news here first. The daily podcasts are Ken and Ken in the Morning, Lions Talk with Smoking Jeremy B, Wrestling Roundup, The Big Football Show, and more, Shield TV, Lions Villain Report, and Red Zone Rant. The afternoon podcasts are Valhalla, Grosef Sports, WCFL Dolphins Talk, The Cheap Seats, The Bodkin Show, Spirit of Detroit Podcast, and Maniacs. The nightly podcasts are Hallis Hall Report, Frozen Tundra Network, Skull Gang 365, The Huddle Sports Network Open Mic, First and 10 with Foz, Main Event Football Show, Prime Sports World, The Man Cave, Prim and Proper Sports. Spitballing Podcast, Lions Fan Cave Chat, Puckett, 313 Den Podcast, The Guys Huddle, Shots from the Sideline, Let's Talk Sports, The Michigan Truth Sports Podcast, Off the Rails, NFC Northeast, Power Hours, and Detroit Lions News. Make sure you follow, like, share, subscribe, and comment. Hope you like all the shows.
Good afternoon. Pardon me. It is Lions Talk with Smoking Jeremy B. We got Moonscar Blade and Dwayne Keene in the chat already. All right, let's roll. But lots going on. Just watched a few reviews of that Paris Johnson block on Marcus Davenport. He 100% karate chopped him and injured that elbow and didn't show any remorse by standing over him, kind of looking down on him. That's just a dirty play. It sucks. Can't you do the hat? It's too damn hot in here. But here is the intro everybody loves, the real intro.
Here locally in the community, make sure y'all go check out Kneecap Body by Jeremy Keene.
Yes, that's right. It is my channel, Kneecap Biting with the Motor City Lions. Huddle Sports is going live into there because it helps me with my views and my likes. If you guys comment on their shows, it counts towards my stuff as well. So thank you for that. Man, it sucks. Barnes and Reader to the IR. No disclosure on whether Barnes needs surgery or not. We know Marcus Davenport needs surgery and more than likely is out for the season. So it's at least 4 weeks off or more for Derek Barnes. It depends on if they determine he needs surgery yet today or not. So we signed Tim Patrick to the active roster. Everybody's like, what are we going to do at defensive end? The same thing we've always done. We're going to call up people from our practice squad. Brad Holmes has not been that guy to panic and go out and overpay or overcompensate with draft capital for somebody. So I think 100% it's going to be Mitchell Aguda or both of them called up. I think Upu has the edge because he played better versus starters in weeks 2 and 3 of the preseason, with getting a sack on Mahomes and also with getting a sack on Justin Fields against their starting O-line. That cannot go understated. But at the same time, one of the sacks that we got on Justin Fields was on third down and by a guy that's playing for the British Columbia Lions. Does Brad Holmes consider calling them and getting taking a flyer on bringing Betts back to the practice squad, because practice squad money in the NFL makes more than they make at the British Columbia Lions. And there's a chance he'd have to be called up. And I think that's a big disparity that everybody's forgetting about. Paul Jones in the chat. Good afternoon. Good to see you, my brother from another mother. I don't think we're going to make a splash trade for someone like Trey Hendrickson. Hassan Reddick has become a diva at Jets, calling out management and certain people on the team on why he didn't get an extension. Uh, it's not looking like he's a grit type of culture fit. Peyton Turner, I've heard, called out, the defensive lineman for the Saints. There's video of him spitting on Devonta Smith after he gave him a concussion on the ground with his helmet off. I don't want a player like that. I don't care if they do have ties to AG and Dan Campbell. Smoking Dad in the chat. There we go. Kneecap Soup Edition. You guys did hear the music, that one. I love it. So I think we're going to see Mitchell Agood or Ukwu called up to the roster. I give the slight edge to Ukwu over his performance this preseason. Is this the week with Barnes out for a while that you'll see Nowoski actually get dressed and played? I wanted him to play last week. They didn't do it. Let's see him this week. He's about the same size as Derek Barnes. He's faster than Derek Barnes. He also is better in coverage. At least he was in college compared to Derek Barnes, who only had 1 year at linebacker, who's just starting to come into his own in the NFL at linebacker. Whereas Nowoski is that outside Sam linebacker I think we need. If Anzalone isn't ready, I'm fine with it being a combination of Rodrigo and Ben Neiman with Jack Campbell, because both of them did sufficient. They weren't great. They were just sufficient. Ben Neiman is great on special teams, so I don't expect him to not be dressed. But I think Nowoski could be the guy that they can bring in. No, 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 and no. Larry Warford's retired. Tahir Whitehead is a buck, and they have no reason to get rid of him right now. And Nevin Lawson, he was never good when he was here. He benefited from a great front seven. So no, no, and no for 1 year. The views and opinions of JBJ, Jeremy Ballrick Jr., does not reflect that of the Motor City Lions and or me, Smoking Jeremy B. Exactly, Dwayne Keene. We don't need people that are crying. And nobody said genius skips a generation. If he was my actual son, I would agree with you. Now I'm going to agree to disagree. We have players that fit our culture better than those players. I will not say any of the players on our roster are better than Trey Hendrickson. Jack Campbell's still developing. He's getting better every week. His PFF rankings and grades show that. Our second half offense was terrible, 100%. Our second half defense was great. We shut them down. They got a field goal. We shut down Marvin Harrison Jr. in the second half. And that was mostly because they went more zone and he was lining up on Terrion Arnold's side, and we didn't see a lot of PIs in the second half. But everybody forgets that part. But Paris Johnson Jr. and what he did to Marcus Davenport in the second quarter, that guy should be fined or suspended. There's no way you should hold a guy's arm and karate chop it down. And Jack Fox, to me, was 100% the MVP of the game. While I agree that while we say the second half was terrible on offense, at the same time, they did what they were supposed to do. They ran the ball. They dominated time of possession with the lead and never gave it up. So I'm not as upset with that second half offensively as a lot of people are because Arizona has been a good red zone defense. And we took advantage of it when we were in it early in the game and got out to a big lead. You know, a 10-point lead is a huge lead in the NFL. If we'd have played like that in the NFC Championship game, guess what? We're not talking about what would have happened if we did it. I wish we could get Kyle Van Noy in his prime again, and he's still looking like a Pro Bowler right now. That's the crazy thing. He's still playing well. He's not as good as he was, but he's still playing at a very high level. I would have gave Jack Fox the game ball myself. My 3 game balls would have went to Jack Fox, David Montgomery, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. And if there was a community game ball to be shared, it went to the O-line. Because Frank Ragnow, being one of our highest ranked offensive linemen, you know what? That's a testament because he hurt. Here's a new picture. I love it. Yes, the wheelbarrow nutsack carrying Dan Campbell. I love that one. But you know what? We're not going for it as much on fourth down anymore. Why? We don't have to. We're playing the field position game. And the field position game and the time of possession game is way more important than any point scored if you're leading. Now, the one thing I can say that the Seattle defense is doing is they're holding down the running game of most teams, which is why those teams have became one-dimensional and why they're winning some close games early. And they beat up on a backup quarterback last week. Who have they faced? They faced Bo Nix and a rookie quarterback in week 1 versus the Broncos. Give up a first rounder in a lifetime. If he was able to be traded, 100%. But he has a no trade clause. He has to agree to that trade. And right now, he's not agreeing to anything. The guy that they're talking about putting on the trade block is Devontae Adams, which makes no sense because he has a $60 million dead cap hit on a trade this year. They shouldn't be even talking about trading him until next year because they still have another 30 on the books next year. Whereas if they wait till next year, when his salary cap goes up, they save 30 million by trading him. And I honestly think that's what's going to happen. But he signed a no trade clause contract with the Raiders because they hired the head coach he wanted, Paul Jones. He said, if I was going to go to another team in free agency, which was, he'd have been a free agent this year, he would have came to Detroit. He wouldn't have had to be traded for. They re-signed him and extended him with a no trade clause. A team controlled no trade clause, no less. Because they don't want him going anywhere else either. But they hired Anthony Pierce, who made the mistake of hiring Luke Getsy. Raiders fans are whining about Getsy all over the place, and I don't blame him. Getsy was an awful OC for Chicago. Nothing else about the 53-man roster other than that. And think about it. We cleared 2 holes, we called one up. Oh, yeah, Adams is not happy being there. He wanted Aiden O'Connell to be the quarterback again because that's when his season picked up. Let's look at it realistically, guys. Who would you wanna play with? A guy that doesn't target you or a guy that was using you? I think Minshew might be getting put on the bench soon if he keeps playing the way he does. I'm in a few Raiders groups. They're jumping off the ship fast. LOL. Yes, they are. They don't mind Pierce, but Getsy, that's who I'm hearing the most complaining about. Yeah, there is a lot of self-affected wounds there. And you know what? Jimmy G wasn't targeting Adams a lot. And Adams whined and complained, and they made AOC the starter, and they had a winning record to end the season. And I'm not talking about for the entire season. I mean in that short window when Aiden O'Connell was the passer. So I think Mitchell Agood or Uku will be our call ups. Because the best pass rusher that was left in free agency in Yannick Ngakoue, he was signed by the Ravens Monday before we found out who was going to be missing. So Frank Clark retired but never turned in his paperwork. Would they kick the tires on a prove it deal on him? Maybe. But he was way more injured than Davenport last year. Came up big for the Chiefs in the playoffs, though. In the playoffs, Frank Clark was money. Demont or JMO in I would go David Montgomery over JMO. I think JMO's going to get some, but I think that David Montgomery is going to be the bigger reason why we win. Him and Gibbs combined. I have JMO occasionally in. Luckily, the week I did start him in my flex, I had him and Jaden Reed week 1, and for some reason I knew that he wasn't going to be as big of a part of the offense the last 2 weeks, and I took him out of it. I don't know if this is the week to put JMO in because they have very good corners and very fast corners for the Seahawks. 6 straight games with a touchdown for Monty. There you go. That's 6 points automatically, plus every 10 yards is a point. Last week he got you 16 points. Plus, if it's a PPR league, he had a few receptions too. The reason JMO was so big is they focused everything on Amon Ross St. Brown and Laporta to stop them from beating him like in the wild card game. And so JMO was left in one-on-one situations most of that game. And he torched Tre'Davious White, who does not look as good as he used to. He has not came to form after that injury. And according to what Dan Campbell said yesterday morning in the presser, it doesn't sound like Houston is going to be the answer this week at defensive end. Because he kind of went, Houston, I don't know if he's ready. So that's a big telling statement that you're probably going to see Uku and Agood, and Houston might not be dressed again. And it's going to go back to what I've said. As soon as the 53-man roster came out, I would have put Houston on the practice squad. I would have sent them to waivers. But we still have a good running game even when Frank the Tank isn't in because of our guards and because of our tackles. They're shutting down to an extent, but they haven't faced anybody whose O-line protects like ours. That's where I'm at. And how tough is Frank Ragnow? He's telling Campbell, God, I want to play this game. I get the rest next week. Let me play, coach. He's begging to play. He wants to go up against the Seahawks. He wants to dominate that interior D line. And so far, he's not counted out. He's just listed as week to week, questionable, not doubtful. So until it changes to doubtful, I'm not counting him out because Campbell may say, I don't know if he can keep, without putting Frank on the IR, if he can keep him out of the game or on the pup list. And it scares me to hear that. But at the same time, look what he did playing 3 quarters with half a peck on one side. I'll say it again. Frank Ragnow is the toughest son of a bitch in the league. And I mean currently, I'm not talking about ever. He's built different. He's built like those guys in the 80s and 90s that used to play hurt all the time. Give me a shot, I'll be okay. I bet you he's going to say use that flexible bandage for holding muscles in place just to play. I just got that weird feeling that Frank Ragnow wants in. I know, I agree, Joseph Austin. But again, I'd say making a call to bet. Who would you rather play for? The BC Lions in the Canadian Football League or have a chance to play in the NFL? If you are a player and the prestige that comes with being in the NFL with a possible playoff contender, who would you rather play for? Not just playoff contender, we're considered Super Bowl contenders still. Right. If the docs say playing him isn't too risky, then play Frank. Because remember, we're not talking about a full tear. We're not even talking about a half tear. They say it's a very minimal partial tear of the pec. And it had to be for him to be able to play through it. Exactly, Dale. I think that's why they didn't send him to the practice squad. And I think that's why he's not ready. I don't think it's a guaranteed contract. So, yes, I believe he can. Let me double check it. It's a 1 year contract. And it's not fully guaranteed. So, yes, he can get out of that contract. I just had to look on the BC Lions football site. It's just an average defensive lineman that's a star in the CFL, which means he makes less than 800,000 a year. Defensive ends on practice squads make almost a million. And don't forget, we signed him to a 3-year futures contract. It was 1 year of playing and 2 years of dead money that goes to him. No, it wasn't the problem last year when they might join for the playoffs. Their season runs weird, and they were in the playoffs. Are you talking about Houston there, Joseph Aston? Because we didn't sign Betts to the offseason. He was one of our first free agent acquisitions. Yep, a plate and 4 screws holding his ankle together. That little bone in the middle now is a metal plate, and it's screwed in through the outside bones. And I said it was gonna limit him for get off. I didn't know it would affect his bend too, but I think his bend is more affected because he gained 20 pounds, which is good for him for his size, 6'1", but at 260, his bend is gone now. So if you've lost your get off and you lost your bend and you're left with a bull rush at that size, 6'1" and 260 going up against 300, it's gonna be easy to pancake you. So remember, he's trying to move that with a healing ankle with 20 more pounds. I think it's Betts' opportunity if he wants to leave. He stayed there to win the Grey Cup with the BC Lions because they were in a playoff push. Right now, it would be easy to get him out of it because it's the beginning of the season, is what I'm getting at. If you made the call now, it'd be easier to get him out of there. If he's with a team that's winning and going all the way, he may not want to leave when it comes to playoff time because he doesn't want to. He's a loyal guy that doesn't want to leave his team in a playoff lurch. If that makes sense, Joseph Austin. I hope I worded that correctly. And Brent says for sure, JB. Houston has to have Bend. He's not a bull rusher. That's why he got manhandled by Dan Skipper. We're talking about a guy that was beating Decker and Sewell no matter which side he was on last year in preseason season prior to the injury. And this year he couldn't get past Dan Skipper in one-on-one. Let that sink in for a minute. He didn't get a sack till he came in the fourth quarter versus the third string of the Steelers because he was finally healthy enough to move and practice with the team. It took him all off season just to be able to get into team event practice. So I think it was more they were afraid to lose him and have him be good somewhere else than it was about keeping him on the roster. We do have an affinity to keep draft picks around longer than their usefulness. There's been a propensity of that. We're quick to trade and use draft capital to get other guys and let them walk that weren't developed by this team. But it seems like Brad and the coaching staff has an affinity for drafted players here in Detroit, and that's fine. Yeah, he couldn't get by Skip. He was manhandled, like thrown to the side. And look at the talent level around him. Was Houston great because the talent level around him wasn't that great and nobody expected anything out of him? And then after they caught on to him and saw his tape, he wasn't as effective as the Sam linebacker last year, but I think that was a mistake in the first place. He was never a Sam linebacker. Um, he was a D end and a middle linebacker at Florida, but mostly a D end at Jackson State. And yes, he had that elite get off. He had that elite bend. He was just swooping right underneath the guy's arms because he's so minuscule in height for the position at 6'1". But for him to try to bull rush Dan Skipper, a guy that's 6'7", 6'8", and 340, that made no sense. He tried to bull rush him because he couldn't bend. I think it's less about that. I think it's exactly what Brad told us, not this offseason, last offseason. He has said, I am going to draft our starters. I'm going to draft our starters and plug and play through trades and free agency, but you won't see me make a splashy signing until we're there. So hear me out on this because this may make sense. It's only week 3. We got 5 weeks before the deadline, correct? If we're in that position where we're one player away from overtaking the North because we're tied or just barely holding on to a lead in the division, that's when Brad might make a splash trade. He's not going to do it now. He's not going to panic. He's going to call people up from the practice squad and see if someone shines to stay on the roster. That's what I think is happening. And if we're doing good and if we do not have 100% drafted starters on every starting position on this roster yet. We are not there. We're there for what's expected of us, but we're not where he wants the roster yet. That was my point, Joseph Austin. I'm trying to put it as plainly as Brad has said. He even said 2025 is probably the year I make a splash. He said this last year. And everybody wants him to do something now, and I don't think he will. I think he's going to do exactly what I'm saying. He's going to see what depth we have between the practice squad and our players on the roster. We'll do a heavy rotation opposite Hutch. If it's not working in 5 weeks, if we're sitting at like barely a 500 record, no, 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 no. I didn't say Super Bowl shot. I said exactly what Brad said. I'm quoting him directly. He literally said, "I will not make a splash trade or signing until I have 100%." Oh, it has bloomed early, but I don't think he sees it that way. That's what I'm getting at. Because if we were there and no, but he said now that the expectations is the Super Bowl. He did say that. So what I'm saying is it depends on where we're sitting at week 8. He's not going to do those moves now. Oh, trust me, Dale. I had 6 of them yesterday and 2 more today already. The only reason we got Goff is because Stafford wanted out. If Stafford wanted to stay, we'd have still had Stafford, David Barnett. The proof is what we got for Stafford with Goff. No, mine is getting more every day. It's okay. I like it. I like talking about life in general. It's what makes the world go round. I think they wanted Stafford, and Goff was the throw-in because Sean McVay dogged him right away. Michael Brockers, before we traded for him, was dogging Goff. Remember that? You guys remember all this? The crap that came out of Michael Brockers' mouth the week before he was traded for? That's when I was like, why are we trading for this guy? I immediately had reservations on that trade. You can't have a guy saying, "Oh, he was washed and he wasn't very good for us here in LA and blah blah this and blah blah that." When and I was like, "This is not a guy that's going to be a culture fit." And what was he for the 2 seasons he was here? He was worse than Benito Jones and Isaiah Bugs combined. I'm back. I'm getting smarter. I applied Vaseline before getting on the Snap-on truck today. Couldn't hold the tools. I get it. I just hated the Goff idea. I know. We all did. Let's be honest. Did anybody here actually want Stafford traded away to begin with? No, the knee-jerk reaction was, "Oh man, we've had him forever, and we're finally going to be have a good coach here." Stafford was tired of being a part of a rebuild. I think he ultimately got to choose his destination. And why they didn't get in trouble for tampering when they were both on the same cruise that went to Cancun or Acapulco or wherever they went with Sean McVay and his wife and Stafford with his wife, why that wasn't considered tampering, I don't know. But I think that's when that whole trade thing happened because that was right after it was a 4-day cruise. It was a 4-day cruise. They go. It was a day out on the boat to the island. They have their little get around for 2 days and then a day back. And all of a sudden, Stafford says, "Ah, I want to go to LA." I think there was some collusion there, some tampering. Maybe even was a wife swap with the way Kelly is. Yeah, I put that out there. Talking about Luke G? Brent, are you talking about Luke G? Luke G's field review? I like that guy. Oh, there definitely was a wife site. Yeah, I know. He said that we would be lucky to get a third round draft pick for Stafford. I remember that. I said, "Really? I think it's 2 firsts." That was on Detroit Lions on the Prowl when he said that, Brent. I was a guest that Friday on Detroit Lions on the Prowl, Free for All Friday. Big news this Friday. The one, the only EZ of the heavyweights will be right here on my channel. I love Luke G, but he was wrong on this one. Yeah, he does a lot of stuff, and he does really good on a lot of his takes. Don't get me wrong. I think they're waiting for Houston to get back in game shape, cut the weight, get his bend back. And then if he can show something, they'll put him on the field. And if he shows something, I think he's trade bait. Somebody we can package with a mid-round pick to possibly get somebody at the trade deadline. That's my guess right now on Houston. Take it with a grain of salt because I don't think he'll ever be as good as he was his rookie year because the film is out on him. Thank God we don't have to play the Cardinals again. That's a dirty team. When Frank tore his pec, if you go back and watch, yes, I remember that, JB. Luke G is a class act dude, 100%. So the Lions fan cave chat's going to have Easy as one of the guests. There will not be a Monday mashup show because it's Monday Night Football and the Lions are on. Woodward Sports has a lot of great people. I do let a lot of great people go. I do like Easy. I've been friends with Easy now for 3 seasons. He originally, I reached out to him and he came on a podcast called We Are Lions Nation with me. And we struck a friendship up. I met him through Detroit Lions on the Prowl. And we've kept in touch ever since. I've called into Woodward Sports a couple times on the heavyweights when I wasn't doing a show at night. So it'll be great to have him on. I'm ready to see our offensive line and our running game rip the heart out of the Seahawks defense. That's what I'm ready to see. And I don't care who's starting. Because they shut down the middle, we got Gibbs on the outside. They start to shut down that, then there's play action. We have a lot of tools to work with. And we haven't even really utilized the play action that much yet. Yes, sir. Oh, guess what, Brent? I'm in the room, so that means FTP. I wish I could get Obene Easy on. That would be great. I mean, I follow him on Twitter, but he's never answered. A lot of them have never answered me on Twitter. I follow all of them on Twitter and Instagram. I've commented or messaged to everybody. Got this close to having bets on at the end of the preseason, but then he wasn't put on the roster. LOL, I love it. As he should be. Yes, thank you, Pat, for saying that. Make sure you guys like it and share it. That's all I need. My subs are holding steady. He's too busy now protecting Rogers' ass. Yeah, and that's a heavy toll. Even though he's skinnier, I know that they're pinning their ears back against that Jets O line after what happened there in the 49ers. But tonight we got the NFL roundtable talks, and I will be bringing up the Paris Johnson stuff on there. Gonna have my guests. We're gonna do the weekly pick'ems. Didn't have that great of a week this week. I think I went 9-7. It is what it is. Yeah, I did go 9-7. I had 19 wins last week, and now I'm at 28. 16 times 3 is 48. I'm still well over 50% though. So I'm happy with that. Doing better than most of the people on the professional shows. 28 and 20. Win some, you lose some, right? Ugh. Pat Rothwell, I don't think they're frauds, but I don't know. Always hit the like button for Jeremy, even when you piss me off. Hey, I appreciate it, Joseph Austin. And yes, I've said some stuff that pisses people off, and I'm not ashamed of admitting it. But guess what? My opinion's my opinion. It doesn't change how I feel. Yes, sir. NFC Special Teams Player of the Week, Jack Fox. He needs to get more of those because people underappreciate what he does by flipping the field. Even when he's not used as much, when he's used, he's effective. Hell, I'm struggling this year. I haven't even hit on a parlay yet this season. Um, I hit on the anytime Gibbs touchdown, anytime Amon Ross touchdown, and the anytime Monty touchdown a week ago. Simple $10 bet, but I like the $75 hit. I like doing the prop parlays better than parlaying wins of teams and losses and stuff like that. It's hard to do. So I have a question for the chat. Which will be the first 0-3 team to win a game this week? Cincinnati, Jacksonville, or the Bungles? Or the Bungles? Who's the third one? God damn it. Titans. John, I think even Jaden Daniels would struggle with the Chicago O line. That interior O line is so bad. That Washington O line looks better. So I'm going to hold off on calling Caleb a bust yet because that's all I bet. $5 to $10 for me, no more than $150 payouts. Yep. You think the Bengals will be the first one to win? I kind of agree with you guys. They're the closest. If their D line would get healthy, not Jacksonville. I, I really agree with that. Trevor Lawrence looks so bad. Oh man, I mean they look so bad. But they did have 6 D linemen on the injury list, and I'm not using that as an excuse. But you know what Cincinnati misses? The guy that's in the middle of our defensive line right now, DJ Reader. Um, it's either going to be Skylar Thompson or the guy they just signed. Is it Huntley? I believe it's Huntley. It's either Huntley or Heineke. I don't remember. I can't remember. It's Huntley. And I think the only reason why Huntley didn't play last week is because he didn't know the playbook yet. So he was there this morning on Ken and Ken in the morning, and he was also there on Russell Wayne's podcast. I saw him there, but he's been quiet. He's just been popping off. And Broski's lurking. He's working from home today. He might be paying attention to a Chicago podcaster right now because he does watch a lot of them too. He goes back and forth between Lions and Chicago podcasts. And you know how my free sponsors go, the unpaying sponsors, the way I do it. I do it in the order of the division. Should I go top to bottom this week, or should I go bottom to top again on today? You guys decide. He was there this morning, Pat. There he is. Broski Bear. Hola, Jeremy. I was listening. Now I'm watching. Hey, 100%, brother. I knew you were working from home. But I will admit, there was a lot of people that wanted Jaden Daniels. All right, I'll do top to bottom today. We'll start that way. We all know who's at the top. Let's get her done. I saw you. I stuck up for you, broski. So at the top, and we're gonna go echo voice on all of them. The Vikings are skull in third place in the division. Fuck the Packers. And in fourth place, we have Fuck the Bears. Hey, broski, Motown Mitch blocked me on Rocked On Podcast today. They said he was in the chat, but I couldn't see any of his comments. Yep. Motown Mitch is probably going to block me too because I didn't call him a name. I called out what he was talking about. I want to say that right now. Did I say anything bad about him, Joseph Austin, when I called in? Well, I guess that means he blocked me everywhere. When I called in, he was saying how Reeder was a disappointment and that it's been all Hutch on his own with these sacks the last 2 weeks. And he even mentioned the fact that they use tight ends and running backs to chip him. And I was like, really? Because Hutch didn't get 4.5 sacks until DJ Reeder was in the middle eating up double teams. And yeah, he called me a clown. I remember that. Probably called me something else because all of a sudden his comments disappeared on the channel. I think one of the because I believe he got blocked for that. Because all of a sudden he was gone, and I don't care. Michael Garrity, one of the moderators, told him, "Why don't you call in and rebuttal?" That's the best way to handle it instead of getting mad and making it personal attacks because that means you're in your feelings. I don't do the personal attack things. I talk about stats. I talk about facts. I talk about things that happen. Trey smacked him down. Broski made a comment that our snacks were mediocre, which mediocre average. We are ranked 15th in pass defense, and that is mediocre. But guess what? That's miles better than last year. Add in the fact we're still the third rushing defense, and guess what? That equals a top 10 defense right now. I think we might be at the worst, we're 12th. It depends on which ranking system you're going by. Fred Peterson, I sometimes wish I had feelings. People get butthurt over a. So I just told everyone to keep it Lions Talk Live comments about the Lions, and he took it as he couldn't smack talk with Broski. Oh, Jesus. I don't care. I welcome the smack talk. I just don't. D-backs, not snacks. Gotcha. Grown men get awfully sensitive on YouTube, but that's because they never had somebody put their fist in their mouth when they were kids. Just saying. But it is that time for me to talk about my paying sponsor because it's almost time to get ready for work. And it's my place of employment. Brandon Service, right at the corner of South Grand Traverse and West Atherton Road, 602 West Atherton Road. Where? In Flint, Michigan. Flint. Where the water's shit, but the tires are good. Stop in and check us out. Used tires starting at $40 and up. If you need new tires, please give us a call, 810-233-8230. Talk to George, Red, or myself. Mention this ad, you get $10 off your tires, your set of tires, unless your name is James Burgess. And JB, it's just because Dan doesn't want to read 1,000 smack talk comments every show. Jeremy, yeah, I grew up old school and got in plenty of brawls back in my day. And you know what the funny thing is about all those fights? 9 times out of 10, it was with somebody you considered a friend who said something bad, whether it was about your family, whether it was something like that. And you get in the fight, and you wouldn't always win, but you wouldn't always lose. But guess what? An hour later or the next morning, you were friends again. You hugged and you're like, hey, bro, it's all right. I'm good. And life went on. That's the way we were raised. What happened to that? And I got in more scraps than a lot of people because from the second grade on, I went to one school from kindergarten through second grade. I went through 12 more schools after that. Or you became friends right after you fought. 100% Moonscar Blade. But you know what I didn't do yesterday? And I'm ashamed of myself. I talked about the PFF rankings. I talked about the fact we won. But what do I do every week after a win? And I forgot to do it. So I'm going to do it right now. Forward down the field, a charging team that will not yield. And when the blue and silver wave, stand and cheer the brave. Rah, rah, rah. Go hard, win this game. With honor, you will keep your fame. Down the field and gain a Lions victory. Go Lions! This has been Lions Talk. I moved around a lot growing up too. Chicago, Philly, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh. Mostly I moved around while growing up right here in Michigan, but I went from one side of Flint to another. Then I went to Durand, then to Vernon, then back to Durand, or Durand, then Corunna, then back to Durand, then Vernon, then back to Flint, then to Burton, then back to Flint. Oh, then to Montrose, then back to Burton, then back to Flint, then back to Burton. I saw the comment doing damage control now at Broski Bear. Hey, we all get soft at times, but guess what, guys? Try every day to be a better person than you were the day before, because that's the only way to make the world a better place. Unless you talk to a rival fan base, then fuck them. Have a great day, everybody.